Hello, here's our CSCI 380, our web programming interface design, week 3. Okay, for our week 3, we will kind do some review. In our lab, we touch on the React.js, and I asked you to looking for W3 school, the website. Of course, we'll go back for the W3 school and then some elements. Okay, we talk about what's the elements, including those like tag. Okay, and some key concept, and quickly go through some fundamental like related to HTML and CSS. And of course, in this moment, we won't really dive too deep and cover too much. And also, there's some questions like to let you to think about that. Okay, and we also talk about what's the dynamic and versus static website. And that's the beginning. Maybe we, of course, just remember we talk about the IP. What is the IP? Okay, so it should be Internet Protocol, okay, or IP address. So you need to think about it. So when we talk about it, and then it should be the IP protocol. And what's the TCP? Okay, so we talk about a lot about the TCP. Okay, so T in the transport layer, so you should relate to the transmission. So it should be control protocol. Okay, and then we asked about the talk about TCP UDP. Okay, so UDP, the full name, use the datagram protocol. So we are using for the communication protocol. So it primarily used for like establish a low latency and loss tolerance thing like connection between applications. So true or false, you can think about that. And of course, true, right? So if you remember the last part, we try to compare between TCP and UDP. And so far, we'll start to talk about what's the differences between static and dynamic web page. If we talk about static, so the website page, so they are self-contained individual page. Okay, so they will send it to the browser or from the server, and then one page at a time. It's more we call the traditional and classic way. So it's doing if you request, if you remember, like in our lab, we talk about that. Okay, if you want to go to that website, maybe the index. Okay, that means your homepage. It will send the homepage. If you click on the menu, you switch to about us. Okay, contact us or some product page. Okay, maybe other pages. Then it will send a whole page. Okay, of course, it will cause certain problem. Okay, that means the latency. Okay, getting late. But compare with the dynamic web pages. So what's the differences? Or even nowadays we saw like single page application. So dynamic web content. So it's built when the page is request. Okay, so it kind of like by the user. So directly or like programmatically. So while the user is on that page. So let's say we have the Facebook update that push. Okay, so for the server side, you see right here they connect with the page HTML, and then in back maybe .NET or the SQL database, or including the HTML page itself. So when you request it, we just like have or like loading those like content. That's it. Okay. And how do we like structure those like content of presentation behavior? Then we'll ask a question. So what the layers or like the structure of the web design? So in the beginning, we were using the JavaScript to work on the behavior. Okay, when let's say for some like animation, some loadings, click on the button, where's the feedback. So all this will handle by JavaScript. And then what's the presentation? The presentation including the CSS and then the imagery. So those like image and then the layout, okay, all those positions, so they are presentation. So they're controlled by the CSS. And in behind, we do have a structure. So the HTML markup or the site planning. So all this related to the structure itself. And especially we work on the single page. Okay, single page, or we using a React. Okay, when we design it, so we do need to think about what's the whole site planning. and then what are the components we're going to like build, and those components, can they be reused? Okay, so we need to ask this question, and also maybe for controlling making your page is more consistent, that may be your CSS. Like, okay, you do need to have some like global CSS, and maybe for certain page, certain components, element, then you need to create some specific CSS. Okay, and also the JS too. Okay, so all this can be controlled by it. And kind of like fundamental, that's what you see, behavior, presentation, and content and structure. So everything from like this. I would like to show you one thing before we move on about the HTML. So HTML right here. Okay, so depends on which kind of IDE you are using. Okay, so maybe different IDE will give you different function, help you to auto fill it. Okay, right here, let's say I put the test, and then right here, hello world. Okay, so always that is a first HTML right here. And I think when you work on the components, as well, I say most of the elements components will be included inside the body. Okay, when we are building, so we put everything in the body instead of the header or somehow. Of course, we can modify it, or we can change it later. Okay. When we work on the HTML, so it's like including two parts. One is the hypertext, and then with the markup language. So it goes at HTTP. Okay, and HTML and this we're going to create, and all this like markup language. So they will come with a set of tags. Okay, so they can, the purpose is to try to group and describe the content. Okay, so we give a tag and then close tag. So most of the tag that comes with a pair. So right here, I'd like to emphasize, like right here, we have the starting tag, and then we put some like element content and the end tag. So right here, if I don't put anything, okay, let's say I open a tab right here, HTML, okay, right here. So you see hello world, right? And I remember some of you try to use the header, and then that's what I'm asked. Okay, H1 header, and then I try to close it. Okay, and save it. Because right now what I'm doing is just I'm not using the VHS, I'm just showing the text, so I'm just using a really simple text editor to show you all this one. So we have the open tag and close tag. Okay, sometimes we can use it to create paragraph, and for this one BR. Okay, so you see BR is a line break. Okay, so that means if you want to create a new line, then you can use the BR. And sometimes let's say let me create multiple. Okay, so I think some of the students already tried, like we using different size of the header, and let me refresh it. Okay, right. So you see right here, but if I put, I didn't, okay, I didn't put the text right here. Okay, so you see there one single line, right? So I want to create a line break right here. Okay, I want to show you one thing. Okay, so you see it works like no matter if we put a backslash or not. Depends on consistency. Like for me, because I like to close it with the backslash, so it's just a one single tag. So just like be careful. Sometimes look at the documents. So most of them maybe we do have a start tag and an end tag, but for some of them we don't have it. So you need to be careful. What are those? Not so many. Sometimes we only have the, like, let's say image, and maybe the LB, the with the line break. So sometimes, okay. So Those I maybe just only have one tag. Okay. Sometimes I like to adding the backslash to showing, okay, it's a start tag and the end tag right together, just a single one. But most of them, they will come with a pair. So if you couldn't display or show the content correctly, or sometimes if you see the content in some weird location, then probably you didn't have a correct like open and close tag. Okay, just be careful. And we do have a lot of different tag, and kind of like in our example, we cannot really cover, but some of them you see one is they call a paragraph tag, okay, and some like the depth we use a lot to create. And right here, I always recommend you to refer to the W3 school. So you see right here for the URL for the link, it's a pair, but for image, it only come with like one single tag. Or like the headings, if you try the headings, example, you're like H1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we need to close it. And also for paragraph will be P. Okay, so we do have the paragraph P. And later we do have some other styles. There will be the CSS. Let's say to give it the depth right here. So itself, it doesn't div, it doesn't have any special feature, but it's more like it's just a container. And then we can give a class name ID to modify. Okay, and we do have more. Let's say if I want to create a list, create tables, so you can refer it. But all these you can see they come with like a start tag and the end tag come with a pair. Okay, and let's move to the next part. So right here, maybe that we can list more like the essential tag. So right here, give you like the primary structure, HTML, head and body. So you can refer like head, okay, body, okay, they included in the HTML. And then we do have a title. If you pay attention right here, title will be right here, okay. And then we do have some like meta, okay, maybe some link. Why not we didn't have it? So the meta will be well described, like maybe it's a view port right here, and then maybe like what's the width, we can define it. Okay, what's the initial scale? Okay, so it's like one. Okay, one thing is like the default scale, and also some structure like PR, and then one H1 to H6, UL, if see all the list, and then all the lists, sometimes like an order list, we do have it. And then with the link image depth, okay, the EM different size, okay, I strong, okay, be bold, some of them. So you will see, okay, for later when we cover the CSS. And right here, slightly about the tag attributes. You will see we try to create the attributes. So language will be English. So if you want to define, like make it more clear, okay, so right here, we say, okay, we are going to support the HTML for the language is English. Then you can change it HTML to language. So right here, okay, so support like English, then you can put it as a EM like this. Okay, so we can pass a value. And if we need to create later, let's say we create a depth, okay, right here we can maybe given a class. Okay, we have a class, maybe a hello. Okay, so we can define the style right here. Of course, like this one is just like a plain HTML, but when we are working on the React.js, we do have something similar, but just like the components will be included the this part only inside the body. Okay, so just let you to know. So then we ask a question right here. Do you pay attention about the attributes value? Does it case sensitive? So actually, yes. So just be careful. Those like attributes value, they will be case sensitive. If you put it lowercase, then you need to match with the lowercase. If uppercase, then you should put it as a uppercase. Just if you couldn't find it, or you couldn't match those attributes, maybe the typo, okay, uppercase, lowercase, or spelling, okay, on this. And right here, just like some basic syntax for the HTML. So what's the correct tag and attributes? So you can think about it before you go inside. So you see the differences right here. So they all have a tag, okay, attribute. So do they come with the first back slash. And then does it come with the double quote? If you remember, then should be this one. It come with the backslash and double quote. Okay, equal sign. And also we're more, so which one is the correct HTML tag for largest heading. So if you remember which one, you remember it would be HY 106 should be 1 because that one is largest one. And also we have some like more question like what's the HTML tag for inserting a line break. We thought you didn't see it, but actually we do have line break. It's the is that called a BR. So if we need to like go to the next line, and you may ask a question, okay, what's the LB right here? Let me try to. Okay, let me refresh it. So here's the differences. So you will see like mainly the line break would be the BR. So you can add a backslash or without the backslash. Okay. And the next part quickly we call about the CSS. Okay. And CSS, the full name is called the cascade and the style sheet. Okay. So it's the CSS. So it's okay. And for the CSS we talk about is like called for the presentation. So it's kind of defining the rules like for presentation, and those target to specific elements or text in the element. So that's what the style sheet doing. Okay, and cascade. So we try to manage certain priority conflicts. Okay, maybe we do have some multiple CSS rules, so we need to know. Okay, so what's the importance and then what's the inheritance between the CSS? Okay, because inside a page, maybe we do have multiple CSS. Later you will see example for the inheritance, or maybe element inherit style property. We start from the body. If you define what's the body, okay, so maybe they are central. So maybe all the kind items inside element will be central. Okay, so it's the parent of the site, and then we have the div. Okay, maybe the parent of ul. Okay, and then li. Okay, right here, and we will see what's the child of body. So when we talk about the certain terms, when we ask the relationship between them, like what's the inheritance, so the parents of the site right here. So what's the child of is a body. Okay, so that is a child of body, and then maybe the child of div and child of the ul, so will be the li. Okay, sometimes we would ask about what's the siblings. Okay, so right next to. So the sibling, that means like, okay, they are on the same level, but this one they only have one element, so they don't have any sibling. Okay, and then you will see inheritance come from here. Let's say for the body we define what's the make the paragraph. Okay, maybe 16 pixels. Okay, right here, and then for then maybe we change from the body and then change the paragraph to blue. Okay, so you will see the color is going to change. Okay, and I'd like to show you the page right here, style CSS. Okay, so CSS, and then we can control the color. So we do have called the inline, internal, and external. Okay, if you look at our React sample, so most of them we're using is the external. So we're using the link to import. Even the way we import is not really same, but it's also the idea. So we doing is the external. So for the inline, you will see like inside a tag, we can define the style and the equal sign and double quote. Okay, so we're giving some color. Okay, right here. For internal, that means we're putting the style under the head, between the head right here, define the style. So we can like retrieve. Okay, and then external, we try to import the link. Okay, so that's what we're doing for our React.js. Okay, and they do have different priority. Okay, so importing file inline have a highest. That means like from the external, and then we try to check the internal, and the last one is the inline. Okay, so if you modify certain content, external CSS, and then you modify in internal, and then you also modify inline. So we show the CSS, the latest one will be the inline one. Okay, just remember for this one. maybe right now you maybe still like have no idea what's the CSS. Actually, we do have a lot that you're changing colors, and maybe the font size, paddings, a lot, border. Okay. Later maybe we will do it as an example when I share some source code. You can look at it, so you can refer to those like source code and then modify, then you will know more features of CSS because there are so many elements and we cannot cover all of them one by one. Okay, just have some idea. So mainly we will know the CSS, all these like syntax, we can provide a great control. We can override, you know, like different layers of it from external, okay, to inline, okay, and then we can specific certain element, okay. So that's why sometimes we using giving ID, we are given the class, so help us to configure the CSS, okay. When we control it, so three times when we talk about one is the rules, selector, and declaration, okay. So if you remember, we look at some examples. So remember the rules right here. We have the selector. Okay, selector will be the name right here. So maybe the H1P. Okay, so all these like can be the selector. We do have a property. Okay, property aside with the value, so they can be the decoration. Okay, decoration, and then each style they do have it has a selector. Okay, and decoration. Okay, and those like property and value. So those pair they will call the CSS rule. So remember, that comes together. Okay, and we have different property to manage. Like sometimes for the some spacing, like paddings. Okay, or like font size. All these. Okay, and those are selector. We talk about a selector. We talk about like selector is the tag. Okay, just remember like the tag body, P paragraph, or A is the link. Okay, so and then we have the different font family, decoration right here, color. Okay, so they associate the CSS rules, okay, with the HTML element. So here's the part we talk about selector. And for the CSS syntax, so it consists of selectors, okay, if you remember, and decoration block. Okay, so we can have multiple, like inside this block we can have more than one, okay, items inside. So those like selectors points to the HTML elements. So we want to style, and then the decoration block contain one or more like decorations. Okay, they were separated by the semicolon. Remember, we're adding the semicolon. If forcing just one, you don't have to put it, but for better habit, I would say, okay, try to put it, okay, the semicolon. And each of the decoration, okay, decoration include CSS property, so name and a value, okay. So they will separate by the colon. So here's is going doing. Sometimes we will giving a type. Okay, so for those like selector, and sometimes we will using ID. So if you put in ID, remember adding a pound sign. And for class, we using a dot. Okay, so what's the ID or class? Then you need to be careful. So right here, the basic one is the type. Okay, pretty common. So body PH1. So they are simply selector. Okay, so we just target those HTML element by their name. Okay, but for the ID, so we will define it. Okay, so we need to add a pound sign and then match with the ID name. If you remember, we're asking what's the attributes like uppercase, like is case sensitive, so be careful. And if we declare as putting ID equal sign and then double quote and giving a name, so this one will be the ID. So you need to like put a pound and then with the ID name. So ID is the attribute right here added to the HTML. So the references ID, so in the CSS, so with a hash, so it can match to it. So this one is called ID. If we are using class, if you try to download some or like copy from online resources, you see lots of examples. So they are lots using the class. Okay, so it can be a group. So those like class also is the HTML attribute. So you can give it is a class, and then just remember we're using a dot. Okay, right here dot, and then giving class name. Okay, so using the period, something like using the period sign, prefer it. So just be careful. Sometimes you ask, okay, then when should we use ID? When should we use class? For ID, sometimes you refer to a specific one tag. Okay, sometimes if you want to get the value of like if you have a login page, you only have the email and password. Okay, so you can give an ID. It's called the ID one's called the account, and then the ID for password like this. Okay, and then maybe for the host section like of this login page, including the like input names or somehow, so you can put it as the class called the login like this. Then you can give in different CSS based on ID and class. Okay, and also the class can be reused. Okay, so if you giving the same class, then you can use it again. Okay, so this is a pretty common. But for ID, you always say we say always unique. Okay, and just keep talking because we talking like which one's better, ID or class. Just like think about it. We say ID should be unique. That means we only have one ID. Okay, for classes, we have multiple. Okay, so you may have multiple classes. Okay, and make them like all the element those tags like belongs to different class is okay. So for ID, we say that's why it's more like specific to one. So is it possible? Can we have a both ID and classes? Yes. So the for the element, so we can define. So really depends why we have class and then we have ID like this. Okay. So each other help us to refer to it. Let's say we have multiple that right here. So if I want to give them, they are all belongs to one same class with different ID, then I can do it in this way. Okay, so it's all possible. So really depends on you. Just a quick revision question. Okay, so based on what we already go through, so here the first question. So which styles it is, if you remember, body inside this element. So should be right here. It will be the inline. Okay, and then so what is the property? So using to set the color of the text. I didn't really say it, but if you look at the example, then you will see, okay, so it should be color, right? So it's a color. If we need to set the background color, then background color. If you want to add an image, background image, all this, okay. So here we're here asking a question, what is the following HTML and CSS code they doing? Okay, so what's doing right here? So we have the HTML, we have a head, okay, so with this head, and we try to define the style, but there's one thing, it didn't goes, and then body and then coast body and this line, and then we have a paragraph right here. Hello thing. So it have display nothing. So right here, so it's no CSS. I say because we missed the coast tag. So be maybe I say pay more attention, be aware of all those tabs because we always making mistake is we miss certain tab. Okay, and I say that one advantage using IDE, it give you like certain highlight. So if you miss certain tag right here, like if you focus to post the tag, sometimes it will give in the feedbacks when you click on it. Then you say, okay, this one pair, but you miss it, you couldn't find this one. Okay, so you know, okay, we missed certain tag. Okay, and how about this one? We have the style, and then we change the header, and we talk about the ID, right? Okay, we have ID, heading, what's the color? So we will try to work on the color, if you remember. So the blue, hello. So it's a really selection ID. Because for the color code, we didn't really talk about that, but just I quickly refer, when we look at the website, I would always recommend, are you love to using Google Chrome and then using the debugger or the inspect? Okay, so you can check all these elements. So refer to the, let's say I want to see what's the color of this button. So we can see like they all overridden. Okay, so here's the last one. Is then remove. So right now, which one this button belongs to is the background color, and you see the color right here. Okay, so it's like kind of the green, and I can choose it and you see it going. We can update the color. Okay, see right here. And if you like the color, sometimes say, okay, I'll copy it and then save to original file and then update our CSS. Okay, and the advantage is that when we modify right here, after we refresh it, it will stay on the same. If you know the structure, if you recall to like last week, kind of like with the go through what's the basic structure of a website. So when we request this web page, we are getting from the website. Okay, so that's why even we update locally, when we refresh it, then the client, that means the Chrome, the browser, will try to request the page, sometimes from the cache or sometimes from the server to get the whole copy of the website. So that's why even you change it locally, um, we can still update right here. Let's say the radius, like border radius, that means the corner. Okay, let's say I want to make it more like curve, change to 20 pixel. So you say it's more like the curve pixel, right? And then when I refresh it, it goes back to normal. Sometimes it's pretty good. Like I like to modify right here and then go back to the CSS. But of course, because we have the like React.js, when you modify it, it can auto refresh. Okay, that means that once you change the verb, um, some variables, and then you can see what's the update immediately. Okay, so we can choose which way you would like to do. Sometimes I don't like to touch the original code before I modify it, so I want to like test it there using the inspect right here and change it once I find the maybe the size or the like certain setting, I pretty like it, the CSS, then I will update the original CSS. So I prefer doing this way. And then you think, how can validate your HTML and CSS? Always say we have so many ways, W3 right here says validator, so you can refer to it. So pretty quick, we go through like all the fundamental HTML and CSS. But later, when we work on React.js, most of them that we are working on the component. So you are no longer seeing the whole page like this structure, but only the component. But when you're building the component, you still need to use certain like HTML, those like tag element. We need to modify or create our own CSS file. So that's what we need to know. And of course, certain like essential syntax you need to know. How can we using the start tag, end tag, okay, what's the content? Maybe for CSS, what's the inline, external, okay, and then how can we use the ID class? So all these are pretty important, okay, and those are what the layers of management, including between the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you still have don't have a picture, whole picture, like what this element, like including HTML, CSS, and JavaScript doing, I wish after this kind of like lecture you have a better idea. But in the industry, because we already changed, like for the single page application, so we changed it as a component based then. It's not exactly the same, okay? But the fundamental basic concept we still share using it. That's why even you still go to W3 school, look at the HTML, we can still use it, okay? Of course, we do have more new features function, but you can find all this right here, okay? And we can create different classes and then like giving different CSS. So this is pretty useful. And so far, I wish you I have some basic idea of the HTML, and next we'll come on move on and have more lab working on the React.js and give you more like sample code so you can touch on it and work on it. And thank you so much.